Hi everyone, and welcome to the Infant Training Webinar. I'm Terry Adolphson, Program Specialist for the Child and Adult Care Food Program in the Spokane Field Office. All infant forms that we will be using today are listed on the CACFP webpage under Program Materials and Forms. This training is for those of you currently serving infants or those of you who wish to do so. This training was presented all over the state in person last year. This will be a refresher for those of you who are attending this training. The purpose of the training is to identify the infant meal pattern, understanding creditable infant meals versus non-creditable meals, know how to document infant meals, and to determine when a meal can be claimed or not. The new CACFP infant meal pattern is based on the recommendations from the National Academy of Medicine, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and public comment. The meal pattern supports breastfeeding, increases the consumption of fruits and vegetables, and decreases the amount of added sugars and sodium. The new infant meal pattern was implemented on October 1st, 2017. Infants have unique nutritional and developmental needs and therefore have a separate meal pattern. Let's begin looking at the infant meal pattern by exploring the age groups. The infant meal pattern with the previous meal pattern had the age groups in 3 groups: birth through 3 months, 4 to 7 months, and 8 to 11 months. With the updated meal pattern, we now have only 2 age groups: birth through 5 months and 6 to 11 months. The reason for the change is to exclusively encourage breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life, and having 2 age groups is also consistent with the American Academy of Pediatrics, and it also is aligned with Women, Infants, and Children's, the IFIC program, and it is more simplistic. The first component we're going to talk about today is breast milk. Breast milk is creditable when it has been expressed and fed to the infant by the center, teacher, or the assistant. With the implementation of the new infant meal pattern, Mom can come to the center and breastfeed on site, and it's now considered a reimbursable meal or snack. Infants that are not being breastfed will be receiving infant formula. The formula must be iron fortified and offered to the infant in the full minimum portion. The infant's healthcare provider and primary caregiver will have decided on which formula is best for the infant. Most iron-fortified infant formulas made in the United States are approved. The formula must be regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. Some formulas have added DHA, which is an omega-3 fatty acid, and contributes to healthy brain development and is permitted by the FDA. Each center claiming infant meals must offer at least one type of iron-fortified infant formula. The formula offered must be regulated by the FDA. So for an example, your center has decided that you will provide Kirkland Signature Brand Iron-Fortified Infant Formula. The parent can select your offered brand or they can supply their own brand. Centers can still receive reimbursement for meals served to the infant when the parent provides the formula, but the parent can provide only one component, and we'll be discussing this in a later slide. There are also exempt formulas. When parents indicate they will provide a specialized or an exempt formula not meeting the CACFP requirements, they must provide a signed medical statement supporting the use of the formula. A diagnosis or medical condition must be identified and authorized with the signature of a state-licensed healthcare professional on the medical statement. Some examples of an exempt formula are Nutramigen, Progrestimil, Alimentum, NeoSure, and Infocare. This is not an exclusive list. If you do have a question about an exempt formula, please look at the website on the bottom of the screen. And this was last updated in December of 2017. If you do have questions, please contact your program specialist. On the screen is the new infant meal pattern. So you can see that we have birth through 5 months, or birth through the end of the 5th month, and then 6 months through the end of the 11th month. Let's start with the birth through 5-month-old groups. Okay, so required at all meals and snacks, 4 to 6 ounces of iron-fortified infant formula and or breast milk. The minimum portion of formula that can be offered to all infants in this age group is a minimum of 4 ounces. Some breastfed babies regularly consume less than the required amount of breast milk per feeding. A serving of less than the minimum amount can be offered to any age infant as long as additional breast milk is offered if the infant is still hungry. Breast milk is the only component that can be offered in less than the minimum portion and still be claimed. Moving on to the 6 to 11-month-olds, this is listed in the far right column of your chart. We're going to go into each meal in detail. So let's start by looking at the iron-fortified infant formula and or breast milk. The portion size is different for breakfast, lunch, and snack, and supper. So let's look at the first part of the chart. 6 through 11 months old, the first part of the chart is breakfast, lunch, and snack, breakfast, lunch, and supper. So 6 to 8 fluid ounces of breast milk is required for breakfast, lunch, and supper. For snack, the minimum portion of breast milk or formula that can be offered is 2 ounces. So iron-fortified infant formula and or breast milk is required at all meals and snacks for infants 6 to 11 months old, and then solid foods when the infant is developmentally ready. Serving sizes are listed as 0 to 2 ounces or tablespoons, or 0 to 4 ounces or tablespoons. The serving size ranges recognize that all infants will not be ready to accept solid foods at exactly 6 months. However, offering the solid food components to an infant in the 6 to 11-month-old age group is required when the infant is developmentally ready. As you can see here, for breakfast, lunch, and supper, they have the exact same meal pattern and the same portion sizes. Iron-fortified infant cereal is no longer a required component at breakfast. So breakfast, lunch, and supper, iron-fortified infant formula and or breast milk is required. And iron-fortified infant cereal or a meat alternate can be served in place of the iron-fortified infant cereal. You can now serve lean meat, fish, poultry, egg, dried beans or peas, cottage cheese, or yogurt. Infants in this age group may now be served whole eggs rather than just the egg yolks. The American Academy of Pediatrics noted there was no convincing evidence that the protein in egg whites could cause early allergic reaction. Another new addition to the infant meal pattern is infants can be served yogurt as long as the yogurt meets the sugar restriction. Yogurt can be part of a nutritious meal for an infant without contributing to the preference for sweet foods when the sugar is limited. Soy yogurt is not allowed, and tofu is also not allowed for infants. The last component is a fruit or vegetable, which is now required at breakfast, lunch, and supper. With the change, the new meal pattern, juice is no longer a creditable item to be served to infants. I do want to point out that the infant meal pattern is not the same as the child meal pattern for the fruit and vegetable components. The infant meal pattern does not separate out the fruit and vegetable component. They're the same component for infants. There's been a major change to the snack meal pattern for infants. So required at snack, iron-fortified infant formula and or breast milk in a 2-ounce minimum portion, and a fruit or vegetable, not juice, and also either iron-fortified infant cereal or ready-to-eat cereal or bread or crackers when the infant is developmentally ready. So as you can see, cereal could be an adult cereal served at snack to an infant as long as it meets the sugar restriction. So let's look at some infant meal pattern takeaways for the 6 to 11-month-old age group. Breast milk or iron-fortified infant formula is required at all meals and snacks. Formulas and cereals must be iron-fortified. Added DHA is okay. Fruits and vegetables are required if an infant is developmentally ready. Juice is not a creditable component. Iron-fortified infant cereal is not required at breakfast. Cottage cheese, yogurt, and whole eggs could be served instead of the iron-fortified infant cereal as a meat alternate at breakfast, lunch, or supper. Cheese food, cheese spread, and tofu are not creditable with the infant meal pattern. So some examples would be cheese spreads out of a can, like Cheese Whiz, Cheese Whips, cream cheese, and imitation cheese, such as American Singles, are not creditable. Those cheese products tend to be really high in sodium. And remember, tofu is not creditable for infants. So let's talk about the additional meal components that are required for infants, starting with cereal. To be creditable as an infant cereal, they must be iron-fortified. They can be mixed with breast milk or formula. So non-creditable infant cereals are non-iron fortified infant cereals containing fruit, jarred infant cereals, and adult cereals. So let's take a look at some cereal comparisons to see which ones are creditable and which ones aren't. On the left, we have creditable infant cereals. These cereals can be single grain or multi-grain. As you can see, we have different name brands. We have Gerber rice cereal, we have a beech nut oatmeal, and we have an Earth's Best whole grain multi-grain cereal. All of these infant cereals are iron fortified with 45% electrolytic iron. Electrolytic iron is the type of iron that an infant can assimilate. And once an infant turns 6 months old, they start to lose their iron stores. On the right, there are some non-creditable cereals that we can't count for reimbursement for infants. Even though we can see Gerber oatmeal, Gerber multigrain, and Gerber mixed cereal. Even though these do have 45% electrolytic iron, we've also seen that they have added banana, they've added apples and sweet potatoes, and they've added apples and bananas. So once a fruit or vegetable is added or another component, they are no longer considered creditable. Quaker Oats is an adult cereal. We all know that Quaker Oats are a healthy cereal, but for infants, Quaker Oats has 10% iron, and it is not electrolytic iron. Cream of rice cereal, even though right on the box it says great for infants, it too has 10% iron and it is not electrolytic. So we have Cheerios up there as a non-creditable grain item. What I do want to note is put a green check mark on cereals because it can be served as the grain item at snack. It would not count as an infant cereal to be served as the cereal or meat alternate at breakfast, lunch, or supper, but it does count as a grain or adult cereal at snack only. So let's move on from cereal to fruits and vegetables. So we want to make sure that you introduce new foods slowly. If you're making them in your kitchen, you want to make sure that you prepare them texture appropriate for the age and development of the infants in your care by pureeing, mashing, mincing, or dicing the food. But you should not be adding salt, sugar, spices, or fat. The infants just don't need the extra calories or anything else added to their fruits or vegetables. And remember, juice is not allowed. So if you're not preparing the food in your kitchen and you're buying commercially prepared fruits and vegetables, we're going to figure out here which ones are creditable and which ones are not. So to be creditable, a fruit or vegetable has to be the first ingredient. It can be a combination of multiple fruits or multiple vegetables or a combination of both. Non-creditable fruits and vegetables that are commercially prepared would be when water is the first ingredient, if it's an infant dinner or dessert, a fruit or vegetable juice, or a juice drink. So let's take a look at some different packages and see if they are creditable or not. The one on the left, the ingredients, peaches, peach puree, and ascorbic acid for freshness, that would be creditable. It's just peaches and water. The non-creditable peach dish that we have is peach cobbler, and that would be your first clue. This one would be considered a dessert. Ingredients, peach puree, with the first ingredient being water. And as you can see, they added rice flour. So once they add another component, it makes it no longer creditable. So be really careful that you're reading your labels. Let's take a look at another comparison. We have two different kinds of apple fruit mixtures here. The first one is apples and ascorbic acid. That would be creditable. The only thing in there is apples and the vitamin C for freshness. The non-creditable one has fruit and oatmeal. First ingredient, apples, but here we've added oat flour, making this a combination item which is not creditable for a fruit and vegetable. Let's try another one. The one on the left is creditable, green beans and water. The one on the right, broccoli and carrots. That sounds great. We know broccoli and carrots are healthy, but the first clue here on this one is water is the first ingredient, and rice flour and dried Parmesan cheese have been added along with skim milk and butter. Here is one that's creditable. This is an organic green beans with water and tuna oil, which is the source of DHA. And remember, DHA is an omega-3 fatty acid. A lot of times it's put in baby food to help to contribute to the brain health of the infant. And the FDA has approved this. USDA says it's now creditable to have DHA added to baby formula, baby cereal, and fruits and vegetables. Let's take a look at a couple more. These are both from Earth's Best. We have garden vegetables and we have summer vegetable dinner. So on the left, this is a combination vegetable. We have organic carrots, organic potatoes, water, organic corn, and organic green beans. So it's all vegetables and water, so that would be creditable. The non-creditable, the first clue is just looking at the very front. It says dinner. Next, the first ingredient is water. So we know that it's not creditable with the first ingredient being water, and they've also added canola oil. So pouches are really popular, and pouches can be creditable or non-creditable. You do the same thing. Make sure you're reading the ingredient list. The one on the left has organic apples, organic zucchini, organic spinach, organic strawberries, and vitamin C. So yes, that one is creditable. So let's take a look at the non-creditable pouch. We have organic pears, organic pear juice. First ingredient, water, organic pear juice concentrate, organic peach puree, and then they've added organic whole grain oat flour, making this not creditable. Fruities. Fruities can be creditable as well. The one on the left is creditable with bananas, pear puree concentrate, water, and sweet potatoes with lemon juice concentrate. So that one is creditable. Let's take a look at the fruit blends that is not creditable. First ingredient, apple puree with water being the first ingredient, sweet potatoes, water, raisins, whole grain oat flour, whole wheat flour, making this non-creditable. So moving on to meat alternates. So commercially prepared meat alternates, we want to make sure that you're looking at the label for these as well. So we want to see plain baby food meats, including beef, chicken, turkey, lamb, veal, and pork. Remember, whole eggs are also creditable as a meat alternate, and yogurt, as long as it has less than 23 grams of sugar per 6 ounces, and soy yogurt is not creditable. So not creditable, we have the combination dinners, meat sticks, breaded battered seafood or canned fish with bones, nuts, seeds, and nut seed butters, tofu, and soy yogurt. Let's take a look at some comparison packages. The one on the left is creditable. This is a little 2.5 ounce jar of ground chicken, water, and then cornstarch is added for stability, making this creditable. Let's look at the one that's not creditable, chicken and rice. So again, that's a combination. So we know just by looking at the name of the item, we know it's not creditable. But look at the first ingredient, carrots. So with carrots being the first ingredient for a meat alternate, it's not creditable. And they've added brown rice flour and canola oil. Let's take a look at another comparison. The one on the left is creditable, finely ground turkey and turkey broth. The one on the right is not creditable, ingredients, apples, water, and finely ground chicken. So it's a combination again, apples and chicken, making this not creditable. Moving on to grains. So to be creditable for a grain item at snack, so remember, a grain item is not required for breakfast, lunch, or supper. It is not part of the meal pattern, but it is for snacks. So to be a creditable grain at snack, you can serve breads that are plain, white, whole wheat, French, Italian, or other breads. You can serve biscuits, English muffins, pita bread, crackers, saltine crackers or snack crackers, rolls, soft tortillas, and infant puffs. Some non-creditable grains would be donuts, cakes, brownies. These are the same as for the older children. These are grain-based desserts and are not allowed in the infant meal pattern. The infants do not need the added calories or sugar. Also not creditable for snacks, waffles, pancakes, hard pretzels, tortilla chips, granola bars, some ready-to-eat cereals that have nuts, seed, or hard grain pieces. We want to be really careful with choking hazards for infants. So with the infant meal pattern, providing food components, this is really important. So for any meal or snack, a parent or guardian can provide only one food component. So if mom is supplying breast milk, that is a component, and she's only allowed to provide one component for the center to be able to claim that meal. Also, formula is a component. So if you've offered Kirkland brand signature iron fortified infant formula and your parent has decided that they don't want the formula type that you're offering and they want to supply their own formula, such as Similac Sensitive, that's one component, and the center must offer all remaining components. And the reason for this is to maintain the integrity of the CACFP and to ensure that the child care settings are not requiring parents and guardians to provide the meal components for the infants. So let's take a look at some scenarios to decide if a meal could be claimed or not. So here we have a 3-month-old infant drinking formula, and the parents providing the formula. The center isn't providing any components because the infant is 3 months old and only drinking formula. Can this meal be claimed? Think about this one just for a second to yourself. So do you think this meal could be claimed? It can. Even though the center is not providing any components, the parent is still only providing one component, and you, the center, have offered to supply the formula, but the parent has chosen to provide their own. So let's look at a different scenario. This is Test Your Knowledge number 2. In this scenario, we have a 6-month-old infant drinking breast milk and eating pureed vegetables and infant cereal. The parent is providing the breast milk and the pureed vegetables. You, the center, you're providing the rice cereal. Can this meal be claimed? Let's take a minute to think about this one. So the answer is no, you cannot claim this meal because the parent is providing more than one component. Let's take another Test Your Knowledge number 3. In this scenario, we have an 11-month-old drinking formula and eating table foods. The parents are providing jarred baby food and fresh fruits and vegetables. The center is providing the iron-fortified infant formula. Do you think this meal can be claimed? Let's take a minute and think about this one. So again, no. The center is only providing one component. They have to supply all components other than just the one component the parent is providing. So we have one more. This is Test Your Knowledge number 4. We have an 11-month-old drinking an Exempt formula and eating table foods. The parent is providing the Exempt formula and fruits and vegetables, and the center, you're providing the iron-fortified infant cereal. Now this is kind of tricky. Can this meal be claimed? Let's take a minute to think about this one. So the answer to this one is yes. With a signed medical statement from a recognized medical authority, this is the only time a parent can provide one component and an additional component with a medical statement, and the center is only providing one component. We have developed a flow chart claiming infant meals. This is also posted on the CACFP webpage, and this will help you in determining if you could claim a meal or not. So let's do a scenario using the flow chart. So we have a parent providing the formula or the breast milk, and the center is providing all other required components. So by following the arrows, yes, this can be a reimbursable meal. A really good idea would be to have this posted in all of the infant rooms so all of your infant teachers would know when they would be able to claim a meal for an infant or not. So let's take a look at some sample infant meals and see if you think this is a reimbursable meal. This is a breakfast, and you can see the meal pattern chart on the right side of your screen. This infant is being offered 6 ounces of iron-fortified infant formula, 3 tablespoons of scrambled eggs, and 2 tablespoons of applesauce. Is this a reimbursable meal? Yes. So remember, at breakfast, a meat alternate can now take the place of the iron-fortified infant cereal. Let's take a look at another breakfast. This infant is being offered 6 ounces of iron-fortified infant formula, 2 ounces of yogurt, and 2 tablespoons of squash. Can this meal be claimed? Is it reimbursable? Yes. as long as the yogurt meets the sugar restriction. How about this snack? We have 3 ounces of breast milk, 2 tablespoons of Cheerios, and 2 tablespoons of bananas. Is this a reimbursable snack? Yes, as long as your Cheerios meet the sugar restriction. So plain Cheerios meet the sugar restriction. You do have to read the ingredient list and the nutrition facts label to make sure that if you're serving pumpkin Cheerios or apple Cheerios, that they do meet the sugar restriction. So we want to talk a little bit about the transitional period. And this is after the first birthday, between the 12th and the 13th month. This is where you want to transition from infant formula to cow's milk. So starting at the beginning of the transition period, you'll want to start out with a ratio of more infant formula, and by the end of the 13th month, you should have transitioned all the way from the iron-fortified infant formula to all cow's milk, which would be whole cow's milk. So you do need to have a medical statement if an infant is not ready for cow's milk after the 13th month, or if you have infants that are not ready to be served the meal pattern. If you have an infant after the transitional period still on breast milk, you can serve breast milk and be reimbursed for any age child receiving breast milk as long as it meets the minimum portion. So once an infant turns a year old, if mom does not supply the minimum amount of breast milk, you must add whole milk to equal the amount for the infant. So if mom is supplying a 1/4 cup of breast milk, the minimum portion is a 1/2 cup, so you would be required to add a 1/4 cup of whole milk to equal that 1/2 cup portion. They don't need to be mixed together in the same cup, but it does need to meet the minimum portion. So we're going to take a 2-minute stretch break. Okay, welcome back. So we are in part 2 of the infant session, and this will be how to claim those infant meals. When claiming infant meals on the CACFP, each center is mandated to offer at least one type of formula. The formula type your center will be offering should be posted in each infant room, or you could have it in your parent handbook. Here is an example. We just typed this up. We're Happy Tots Child Care Center, and we're telling all of our infant parents that we are offering Kirkland's signature brand iron fortified infant formula. So now the parent has a choice of our formula, or they're welcome to bring their own. And remember to put the statement on the bottom of your form. Here is an example of a parent board where we've got the CACFP infant meal pattern posted along with the center provided foods that our center will be offering for each of the infants. It's not required that you have a parent board because all this information can be in the parent handbook. So if you are claiming infant meals, during a CACFP review, the OSPI reviewer would be verifying these items are purchased and available by verifying receipts and invoices. We would also be looking at in your infant room, in your infant refrigerator or your cupboard to make sure that you have creditable jars of infant baby food or your cereals are meeting the sugar restriction for your grain items. Each infant should have a CACFP infant meal form on file. This is how reviewers can tell if an infant is developmentally ready for each component. The CACFP infant meal form will take the place of the infant formula offer form previously used. This form must be completed for each infant to include the infant's full name, birth date, and formula type. So here is where we will know if an infant is developmentally ready. The infant meal form also has the infant meal pattern as well as instructions on how to complete the form. So we have a new CACFP infant meal form developed starting this fiscal year. This just gives us a little bit more information. So let's go through the infant meal form together. So this form should have the infant's full name, date of birth, the formula type that your center offers, the date the infant was enrolled, and the formula type the infant is drinking right now. So here we put NA because Levi is drinking breast milk. So down at the bottom in the chart, we want to check breast milk, developmentally ready, and parent supplies. Then we're going to put the date the infant started, and the staff person filling out the form should be putting their initials. So this form is not for the parent to fill out, but rather the staff. So here we can tell iron fortified infant cereal, and we made some notes here. Ready for iron fortified infant cereal at meals only, starting on July 2nd, 2018, and initialed by the staff. So in looking at this form on July 2nd, we can tell that Levi is drinking breast milk and eating iron fortified infant cereal at meals only. Next, fruit or vegetables, introduced to vegetables, meals only on August 1st, 2018. And again, the staff initialed. So that's not a lot of room to make notes. So we made a note section on the bottom of the form. So here we can keep adding more information as the infant is introduced to new food components. So here we have, Mom wants Levi to have breast milk at snack as the only component. And this is August 1st, 2018, and signed by the staff. So on August 1st, if we were looking at Levi's infant meal record, we would see for snack that Levi should have breast milk as the only component. So if he's missing the fruit and vegetable and grain at snack, that would not be a disallow. So moving down a little farther on the form, we can see that Levi switched from breast milk to iron fortified infant formula on August 18th, and it is a parent supplied meal component. Also, on August 18th, Mom wants Levi to have baby food from a jar, not table food, and it was initialed. On August 25th, Levi is now eating fruits from a jar as well as vegetables. And on September 1st, Levi is now eating plain, strained baby food meats. On October 1, we can see Levi can have all center foods, including grains and crackers. So now when we're looking at an infant meal record for Levi, after October 1, 2018, we should see all meal components at all meals and snacks being recorded for Levi. If not, then this is where we would have infant meal disallows. So once we have the infant meal form figured out and all filled out for each infant in your center, we now have to figure out, well, how do we document the meals? So we have two different infant meal records that you can use. We have a monthly form and a daily form. It's not required that you complete both forms, but each center can choose if they want the monthly form or the daily form. The monthly form, we have two forms, a birth through 5-month form, and we have a 6 to 11-month form. So let's start with the birth through 5-month form, and this is the monthly form. So each infant would have one form for each month. So for an example, this is Jordan Williams, his birth date, June 1st, 2018, and we're recording meals for August of 2018. So let's take a look at what this infant meal form would look like, filled out for August 1st for Jordan. So Jordan was offered breast milk at breakfast, AM snack, lunch, and PM snack. So being in the birth through 5-month age group, that's all that's required, breast milk or formula. But wait, we've got to take away the fourth meal. Infants are the same as children in this regard. They can be reimbursed for 2 meals and 1 snack, or 2 snacks and 1 meal per infant per day. So you'll just want to put an X or a check or a stick mark by the meals, and then at the end of the month, you'll total them up at the bottom. So if you had 12 infants in your center, you'll have 12 forms, and you'll want to make sure that you are transferring them to a compilation sheet. But let's take a look first at what the form looks like if you have more than breakfast, AM snack, lunch, PM snack. So we do have an extended version if you're serving supper and evening snack. You would fill it out the exact same way. Once the infant turns 6 months old, we now have listed the required components in addition to the iron-fortified infant formula and/or breast milk. And you can note that the portions are listed in the minimum portions, so it's not required that you list the portion size. So let's take a look at a 6 to 11-month-old infant and what this form would look like. So here we have Taryn Jones, birth date November 2nd, 2017, and we're recording meals once again for August 2018. So on August 1st, Taryn was offered formula, an egg, and apricots at breakfast. So we know that that's a reimbursable meal because remember, an egg can be served instead of the iron-fortified infant cereal at breakfast. So for morning snack, Taryn was offered formula, pears, and Cheerios. And again, this meets the meal pattern. It has the required components for snack. For lunch, Taryn was offered formula, chicken, and squash, again, meeting the meal pattern. So let's move on to August 3rd. What did Taryn have for August 3rd meals? So for breakfast, she had formula, yogurt, and plums. And again, this meets the meal pattern for an infant, 6 to 11 months, as long as the yogurt is meeting the sugar restriction. For AM snack, Taryn had formula, peaches, and a waffle. For lunch, she had formula, cereal, and sweet potatoes. For afternoon snack, she had formula, peas, and toast. So now we have 4 meals here. So we have to take away, well, we should take away one of the snacks because you don't want to take away the breakfast or the lunch because your reimbursement is higher for meals than it is snacks. So typically we would take away the PM snack as the 4th meal. But here we notice that Taryn was served a non-creditable grain for snack, which was a waffle. So we're going to take away the AM snack instead of the PM snack. So with Taryn's meals, we do the same thing that we did with Jordan. We add the meals up at the bottom of the page at the end of the month. Now, all of these meal counts need to be transferred to the compilation sheet. As you can see, Jordan had 19 breakfasts, 20 AM snack, 20 lunches, and 0 PM snacks. And then we put Taryn's meals, Cannon's meals, and Elijah's meals. We added them all up, and then we're going to put them with the child care meal counts. So here is your second option. If you don't want to do the monthly form, having 1 form per infant for the month, you could do a daily form instead. So the daily form would be recording all infants on 1 daily sheet. So the daily sheet would have enough room that you could have all infants in your infant room on 1 sheet of paper. So what would the meals look like recorded on the daily sheet? So here's Jordan again with breast milk for breakfast, AM snack, lunch, and PM snack. And again, we took off the 4th meal, the PM snack. Taryn's meals were the formula, the egg, and the apricots, the iron-fortified infant formula, peaches and waffle, the formula cereal sweet potatoes, and formula peas and toast. And again, we took off the AM snack. Let's add another child, Cannon Miller. For breakfast, he had breast milk, cereal, and peas. And here we noted with the P that the peas were provided by the parent. You could also use an asterisk if you would rather do that. For AM snack, he had breast milk, pears, and Cheerios. For breakfast, for lunch, breast milk, cereal, and sweet potatoes. For PM snack, breast milk, applesauce, and toast. So here Cannon has 4 meals. And remember, 2 meals and 1 snack, or 2 snacks and 1 meal per infant per day. So we have to take one of these away. So think about this just for a minute. Which one of these meals or snacks would you take away as the 4th meal? I'm going to give you just a couple minutes just to think about this in your head. So did anyone say breakfast? So if you decided that you would take off the breakfast meal, you are correct, because mom is supplying the breast milk, which is the only component that she could supply in order for the center to claim the meal. And as you note here, the peas were also provided by the parent. So the parent provided more than one component, and this is not a reimbursable meal. So again, you would put the date at the bottom of the form, total up your meals, and then you would take each one of these daily sheets and transfer it to a compilation sheet. So you should have 1 sheet per day per infant room. And again, now your meal counts are ready to be added to the totals of your child care meal counts. So we do want to talk just a little bit about on-demand feeding and how do you claim a meal when an infant is fed at a time that's outside your normal serving time. Since infants are fed on demand, there is no specific meal time. You want to make sure that you're feeding your infants when they're hungry, but only meal types that are used for claiming can be claimed. So if you're trying to claim an AM snack or a supper for your infants, you have to make sure that you have those meal types approved in WINS. So we're going to take a test your knowledge, a couple of scenarios to see when infant meals can be claimed. So infants are different than your older children, and we all know that your older children have to be served all of the required components at the same time in order for the meal to be claimed. But infants are a little bit different. Sometimes they'll have a bottle and they'll fall asleep and they won't eat the rest of their breakfast or their lunch until they wake up after nap. And that's okay. You can still claim the meal, but let's just kind of go through some scenarios and look and see how that would work. So here in this scenario, we have a 4-month-old infant arrives at the center at 9:15. So the center feeds the infant a bottle at 9:20, another bottle at 12, and another bottle at 3:45. So this one's pretty easy. The center could claim a breakfast, a lunch, and a PM snack. Even if you typically serve breakfast from 7:30 to 8:30, you could still claim a breakfast at 9:20. So let's do another scenario. This is again a 4-month-old infant, arrives at daycare at 9:15, but had a bottle on the way. So the center feeds the infant a bottle at 10:30, another bottle at 1 o'clock, and another bottle at 3:45, and one more bottle at 5:30 before he goes home. So think about this. What meals would you claim for this infant? Or what meals could you claim for this infant? So you could claim AM snack, lunch, PM snack, and supper. You really couldn't claim a breakfast being served as late as 10:30. So here we have 4 and we want to make sure that we are only claiming 3 because a 4th meal is not allowed. So here we're going to take off the PM snack because we do get higher reimbursement for supper and lunch than we do the snacks. So let's try a 10-month-old infant. So this infant arrives at daycare at 9:15, was breastfed at home. So the center offers the infant a scrambled egg and some peaches at 9:15. Then he has a bottle at 10 o'clock, another bottle at 12 with chicken and squash, and another bottle at 3:45. So what could we claim for this infant? Absolutely, we could claim a breakfast, even though the baby did not have the bottle until 10 o'clock. The breakfast was started at 9:15. So at 9:15, he had a scrambled egg and some peaches. So you want to think about finishing one meal before moving on to the next. So you started the breakfast at 9:15 and you finished the breakfast at 10. So yes, that could be considered a breakfast and it would be reimbursable. The infant has another bottle at 12 along with chicken and squash. So you could claim a lunch, that's a complete meal. And he's 10 months old and he has another bottle at 3:45. So that could be a PM snack. But wait, I would say this PM snack is missing the fruit vegetable component and the grain component. The only way that this could be considered a reimbursable meal is if you're keeping your infant meal records, those infant meal forms, up to date, and you have a notation in there that mom does not want her baby to have anything but a bottle for snacks. And as long as that's documented, those meals would not be disallowed. So let's take a look at a 7-month-old, kind of a tricky scenario. We have a 7-month-old that arrives at 7:45 and mom breastfeeds on site. And then the center offers the infant iron fortified infant cereal. The center feeds the infant a 5-ounce bottle of breast milk at 10, and he has another bottle at 12 with iron fortified infant cereal and another bottle at 3:45. What meals do you think we could claim for this 7-month-old infant? So this infant is 7 months old, just now developmentally ready for iron fortified infant cereal. So we could claim a breakfast for this infant. So he has a 5-ounce bottle of breast milk at 10, but we're not going to claim that because he's not being offered the iron fortified infant cereal. He does have a bottle at 12 with the iron fortified infant cereal at lunch, so we're going to claim a lunch. He has another bottle at 3:45. That would be a PM snack that we're not going to claim because it's missing the iron fortified infant cereal or grain component at the snack. If, again, on the infant form that it says that mom wants this infant to only have breast milk at snacks, then one of these snacks would not be disallowed as well. So here we have a 9-month-old infant. This infant arrives at 7:45 and mom breastfeeds on site. The infant is offered iron fortified infant cereal and plums at 9:30. The center feeds the infant a bottle at 10:45. The infant has cheese and green beans at 12:30, another bottle at 3:45, and at 4:30 he's offered peaches and Cheerios. What do you think we could claim for this 9-month-old infant? So we could take the breast milk that mom provided on site at 7:45 with the components of the iron fortified infant cereal and plums at 9:30 and count that as a breakfast. Then we could take the 10:45 10:45 bottle with the cheese and green beans at 12:30 and count that as a lunch. And then the 3:45 bottle with the 4:30 grain, and fruit, and that would be a PM snack. So it just really makes sense to think about the first component that the infant has and then adding the required components even if they're not being fed to the baby at the same time. So here's what the form looks like from the scenarios that we just went through. So you could see the birth through 5-month-old section, we have the 4-month-old that we took away the PM snack and got credit for the supper. And here we can see the 10-month-old was missing a fruit, vegetable, and a grain at the PM snack. So we're not counting that PM snack. The 7-month-old infant, we took away both of the snacks because he was developmentally ready for iron-fortified infant cereal and didn't receive either one. If we had it recorded on the infant meal form, then we wouldn't have to disallow both of those snacks. The 9-month-old, we can see that all the meals were creditable with breast milk, rice, iron-fortified infant cereal, and plums for the breakfast, even though they were served an hour or so apart. Lunch, breast milk, cheese, and green beans, even though they weren't served all together. And then the breast milk, peaches, and Cheerios. So that is the end of the infant meal pattern training. I want to thank you for attending. If you do have questions, please remember you can always contact your program specialist.